Hello there, and thanks for joining. We are about to embark on a journey into the mind of a creature that lurks on this earth in our everyday lives. A creature that we have all been and hopefully have overcome. A creature of obsession and curiosity among the minds of my own generation. A creature that plagues the youth due to our use of the internet and extensive use of social media today. I'll cut the shit. We're talking about Sims today. Hello, all you lovely people. I am Connor Bickelmeyer, and I'm now bringing you the long awaited, unmade video that has gone so silent until now. I will be joined with many of my friends to talk about the many different types of Sims that there are. Yes, there are many. And they will give their opinions on the matters discussed here today. This video is going to be split into several different parts, and you could use the description to skip to whatever part you want to go to. It will also probably be very useful if you want to come back and watch it later, so there's that for you. As usual, if you're interested in stuff on the channel like cooking videos, vlogs, and more, be sure to subscribe and leave a comment on things that you want to see. Myself and my broski Ethan really appreciate the support, but without further ado, let's begin. Question that many of my older audience may be asking right now is, what the hell is a simp? And I'm sure the quick answer from the younger generation would be something like this: someone who does way too much for someone they find attractive. You know, like this guy.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck, man?
This is a rather extreme example, but I think it perfectly illustrates the point. There's different levels to simping, and I think that this is the lowest that you can go. A more realistic example would be a guy justifying their girlfriend going out and cheating with other men just to keep the relationship intact because they have abandonment issues or low self-esteem. However, I want to expand on that and point out that it can be present in other relationships too. Friendships, work relationships, etc. They manifest differently than the dating context it's called out for 99% of the time. Also, I think this would be a great time to point out that I'll be talking mainly from the male perspective. I'll also be talking about morals here, so if we disagree on anything related to that, it's because we disagree on what is right and wrong. Now, what would simping in a friendship look like? For starters, this would be called an unbalanced friendship. If you've ever had a friend who doesn't reciprocate favors for you and doesn't seem to put in as much effort into a relationship, that's basically what it is. I've had a lot of these people in my life and it's not fun. You're basically made to feel like a doormat, and because I was very insecure and not very smart with how I managed my relationships in my life, I pretty much just got walked all over. So what I did was I tried to please them in every circumstance imaginable in order to keep the relationship stable, and instead I got thrown under the bus. Suck balls, 0 out of 10. I think it's friends like these that can explain why some people have social anxiety, because they're making them feel insecure and worthless. Now that I think about it, I think that could be a great psychological experiment. But my point that I wanted to illustrate here was that simping can be just as destructive in unbalanced friendships just as they can in unbalanced relationships. Okay, so we know what it looks like, but now we need to know, where does this behavior come from? And in order to figure that answer out, we need to dig a little bit deeper and get into some psychopathology. Oh yeah.
I feel like a common occurrence with like people will have friend groups of boys, and um, you can find when some of those people get girlfriends, they can like become distant with their friend group. And like I could just personally say, like, I've seen people, you know, reach out a lot less. They're not as active at talking to people in group chats, or like uh, let's just say they're not as open to do things, and they just kind of seem like, you know, I find them breaking up with them, and then they seem like a whole different person, and you know, you become way more closer with them, and they just seem like different. And I'm like, well, this, well, obviously it had to come from the girls. So as I said before, obsession is a bad thing. And so when you see one person just like all of their time on one thing, and they will not do anything else, or like, you know, like, this relationship is like supreme priority, I won't listen to anything else, then like, well, you know, we're not going to be friends with you, and you kind of lame.
Caleb makes a good point about obsession here. It's a bad thing, and no matter what situation it is, it's an emotion that will harm, exhaust you, and the others around you. Something that all simps deal with, followed with self-esteem issues. And I think that is the key root of it all. And unfortunately, people confuse it with what it means to love people. An easy way to remember it, I think, is that love gives and obsession takes. They're two completely different emotions, but for some reason people keep confusing them for being the same thing. But I'll get into that later. Behavior like this happens all the time online and in the real world. Go on any influencer's comment section and you will find hundreds, if not thousands of comments of Sims acting like complete degenerates. 2020 was like prime time for a sharp spike in simp behavior online, and Nico, a do-nothing influencer, I'd say was one of the people who pioneered the simp movement. She got famous for doing that OK Boomer dance during the election for Bernie Sanders. Just wait till you see some of these comments. I'll vote for Bernie if you shit on my chest. Do I need to say anything? Make an OnlyFans and I will vote for Bernie. I think she already did that. I would let you give me COVID-19. I wish you were my girlfriend. It's a classic. Step on my throat, queen. You see, that's why I think that most of this origin of where simping comes from is self-esteem and obsession. Just because you see comments like these, you just tell that these people have no sense of self-respect at all. You see what I mean? I would do anything she tells me. She asks him to cut his balls off. I'm going to be fair and say that it's not the influencer's fault completely for men becoming simps. But if you look at the man, you just have to ask, why? Why are you on here wanting some BDSM bullshit done to you? Anyway, I'm getting a little off track. In real life, signs of obsession in Sims would be like, should I get this right here? Constantly being on the phone, ditching out on plans to be with the person of interest, rapid mood changes, and neglecting other relationships in favor of the person. And loving someone is the exact opposite of all of these things. If you point out these concerns to them and they don't listen to you, then the best thing that you can do is to let them go. Because if we're keeping it real, it shows that they don't respect you. And you could apply that same logic to like if someone was going through an addiction per se.
Have you ever had any experience around people like that?
Yes.
What was that like for you?
It was very disheartening, considering that these were people I cared about, and I saw them essentially destroying themselves for a person who couldn't give a shit about them.
It's hard for me to show compassion for people who behave this way, because from my own personal experience, they don't listen, and as Ethan has said from his own experience, he's experienced many of the same things. There may be Sims out there that are open to change, and some do change, but it's not always the best decision to give up right away. If it's their first relationship, it's reasonable to cut some slack at first, but if they start to become distant because of it, point it out and communicate how you feel. If they don't change their behavior, let it go. Communication is key in a situation like this. Obsession can be combated with a multitude of techniques, but one of the most effective techniques, I think, is to have self-awareness. And sometimes what we need is a good support system in order to point that out, which is why we should not give up on these people once you start to notice signs of obsession. I did a little experiment with my friends and asked them to complete an emotional intelligence test before I sat them down to talk to them about themselves and topics related to this video. Much like IQ, instead of measuring your ability to reason, EI is measuring one's ability to manage and recognize emotions. I thought it would be interesting to see if lower scores would be linked to mediocrity, which I thought was best described by Ethan as somebody who has lost the desire to dream. People who say, I wish I had this, or I wish I did this. The ultimate question is, why don't you put the work in to achieve it? Many people can say that they are happy with their lives, but chances are they are lying to themselves as a coping mechanism. I thought this correlation could be interesting to study in order to see how well people handle emotions, because people who have very low scores may have a higher chance of having more problems with relationships, management skills, happiness, etc. Therefore meaning low self-esteem, which can ultimately lead to simping. None of my friends exhibited signs of this, which introduces a massive flaw with the study, that being that I don't have a big enough sample size and defining mediocrity from their answers would be difficult. It also introduces an ethical concern, as since I'm showing their names and faces here, I don't want to be mean and label them as average. So clearly, I didn't think my experiment all the way through. However, I received some interesting answers regardless of EI scores being diverse, low and high, which is at full disclosure here. Overall, I did learn a lot from the interviews and more about my friends as a result, even though I wasn't able to get a clear answer. So why is emotional intelligence important here anyway? Because someone who is emotionally illiterate is more likely to fall into unhealthy thinking patterns, I believe. Scoring low on an EI test doesn't always mean that someone is emotionally dumb, as they may be smarter in some areas than others. Self-awareness and self-evaluation may be a strong suit for one person, and empathy is a weaker spot that they need to work on. A big sign of emotional illiteracy can be found in people who let their feelings guide them rather than using logic. Let's say like marketing, for example. People make a lot of decisions based on their emotions whenever they see an ad on TV or something like that. So if you look at the commercial with the sick pets in the shelters and they're crying and all that, it's tapping into that emotion in order to get you to donate money to an organization. Ads will try to tap into your emotions in order to get you to buy something. As someone studying psychology, I know I've got a few tricks up my sleeve. However, I am not here to manipulate you, except in getting you to subscribe. The same kind of logic can be applied with the kinds of relationships people develop in life. If you let your emotions guide you, you're setting yourself up to be manipulated, cheated on, and pretty much everything bad. Because let's face it, people who manipulate are very smart in recognizing their victims. You ever met a dark empath? They usually appear very charismatic and cool at first glance, which gives them the award of having the most dangerous personality type. I'll leave a link in the description below to the Psych to Go channel because they explain it very well. Or you can follow me on Instagram and I can send you my documentary. That's why I think we need to be more aware of how our emotions influence us and the way we perceive life. And a lot of times, people don't even know what it is they are feeling, regardless of age.
How long have you been hung up on Robin? 8 years? And you're still killing yourself to fetch dumb little trinkets for her. That's crazy. That's more than crazy. I don't think there's a word for what that is.
Actually, there is a word for that. It's love. I'm in love with her, okay? If you're looking for the word, that means caring about someone beyond all rationality and wanting them to have everything they want, no matter how much it destroys you, it's love.
If you've ever watched cartoons, movies, or indulged in other forms of media, you have probably seen a simp in at least one of them. Tom, Johnny Bravo, Finn, Morty, Greg Heffley, and Thanos from the comics are all great examples of simps, not that Thanos. When we Gen Zers were young, I think we misunderstood a lot of how messed up some of these characters were.
I guess what would you say is an example from media? So, me personally, I'd say The Great Gatsby.
Fuck, that guy was a simp. Yeah, no, I would agree. Letting your girl get away with murder and getting shot because of it is definitely simp behavior. I was thinking like Snow White, like in The Prince. like those traditional fairy tales.
When I start to analyze my favorite cartoons as an adult, I kind of look at my old self and just want to smack my younger self in the head for sympathizing with some of these characters. Like, for real, when I was younger, I felt bad for Mordecai when he wasn't vibing with Margaret. And let us not forget, he killed his best friend over a girl. Yes, that happened in an episode. Using mostly cartoons to illustrate my point here might sound silly, but think about it. Historically, the media has the power to change our viewpoints in many things, so I don't see anything different with how it influences our viewpoint and other things in life. Shit, these cartoons were conditioning us on how to act in these situations when we were kids. Must explain why some of my old friends acted like Mordecai when I was in high school. But what about music? We have artists singing about sexualizing and objectifying women as well as taking advantage of weak men. Specifically, I'm looking at a lot of mainstream rap music that displays this messaging. Cardi B's WAP makes Nicki Minaj's Anaconda look clean. The fact that our society awards this kind of music at ceremonies now shows exactly where our values are, and it's not good. Back to cartoons, I'm not saying that having characters that are a little bit thirsty in a story is inherently bad. It's often necessary in order to develop the character of the story. We watch movies to escape from reality, be entertained, and sometimes we might walk away learning a moral lesson, but it's important to acknowledge that a lot of what we see is fiction, including how Hollywood depicts romance. Much of the quote-unquote love that I see depicted before my eyes could easily be diagnosed with obsessive love disorder, or OLD. OLD is not an official disorder by any means, and it's better described as a state of mind, and ironically you see all this stuff in cartoons. Neglecting other relationships and tasks, intense longing and desire, constant thoughts, and recurrent fantasies are to name a few of the symptoms. Society confuses what love and obsession are, and it's easy to mix these two things if not aware of the differences. And I think a lot of the way a simp behaves stems from this kind of obsessive need, whether it be sex, control, validation, etc. Whereas in healthy connections, mutual respect exists, as well as the freedom for both people to live their own lives. I'm not going to say that movies are the biggest direct cause for simping, because there's obviously a lot of complexity to how a person comes to think that way. However, I think it's safe to say that all of us grew up with this quote-unquote love lie, that it's this crazy feeling that's hard to control, and I rarely ever see the harm of embracing this feeling addressed. If anything, it's rewarded. I roll my eyes every time I see this crap depicted in movies because I know it's not real and it's absurd. We're making people think it's okay to act obsessive over people we find attractive.
You have to trust that this person really does care about you and that they want the best for you. I think that's what true love is wanting the best for somebody, whether or not you are around for that. Like the saying, if you love something, let it go. That's true love, to not hold somebody or something down because it brings you joy.
In the movies, the boys would like pull the girl's hair and they'd be like, oh, he just likes you. That's what boys do when they like you. Or they'll hit you and, oh no, that boy, he just likes you, because they don't know how to express their emotions. So that's how we kind of grew up. But I don't know, I haven't really watched any romantic movies lately. When I do, it's just all of a sudden a sex scene, and I'm like, okay, well, I didn't sign up for that.
Love's very hard to describe, but it's a very good thing, and it just allows us to like build a connection with someone, and it can be very different for different people. Like, you can love your family and like a significant other and your friends.
Well, I'll tell you, there is a very fine line between love and obsession. Obsession feels like love, but it's not love. True love is accepting a person for who they are, flaws and all. Obsession is having this unrealistic expectation of them. And people tend to get this mixed up quite a bit. So, that's it.
Love is a good thing, and I may have my feelings against it myself, but can we please get more accurate depictions of what it's really like and stop making it appear like it's only important in romantic relationships? It should be addressed for what it really is: fairy tales.
U.S. Surgeon General Dr. Vivek Murthy has issued a new advisory on loneliness as a health issue.
Life for a man is harder than life for a woman. We need to have a lot of shit to be an important man. To be a woman, you need makeup. If you're truly beautiful, you don't need anything else.
I'm a high value man, I call the shots, I'm this. These guys are so insecure, and it all comes from getting their heart broken to some degree.
They were teachers by day and OnlyFans stars by night. Coppage eventually resigned, telling Fox News she now makes up to $1 million on the platform.
I'm going to try my best to not say the word because I know if I start making money from YouTube, I'll get demonetized. But we're going to talk about corn, or should I say adult entertainment. We live in a time where our culture is more hypersexualized than it's ever been. Everywhere you look, you find expressions of sexuality in movies, TV, music, and probably the people you hang out with. In my opinion, I think the underground industry of corn can be playing a part in it. And you don't need to take my word for it, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. What's that old saying? Sex sells? So of course people are going to take advantage of that kind of money. And nowadays, that's so much easier. Basically, I think our culture has turned us into a bunch of perverts. And I say easier because you now have a platform called OnlyFans, which skyrocketed in popularity during COVID. It's a subscription service that allows paying customers to subscribe to models in order to see exclusive content, hence the name OnlyFans. Now anybody, teachers, neighbors, your best friend, and even your grandma can create an OnlyFans to share explicit photos on. However, most people who make content aren't as successful there. There are some models who make millions of dollars just for sharing their body and posting sexual content on the daily, but that's like the top 1%. What's more jarring though is that most of that money comes directly from the subscriptions, donations, and DMs, the paying customers. Which begs the question, why? Why pay for it when you can literally look at it for free on the hub? I mean, not saying that you should, but you get my point. Platform has a negative reputation for those using it to leave a digital footprint that basically ruins any chance of getting a good job. Because let's be real, all those paying customers are eventually going to fade out and it's not a very reliable source of income. Mark my word, when I asked my friends about OnlyFans, none of them had positive things to say when I brought it up.
What is your opinion on OnlyFans?
I think it's utterly disgusting. I think it's teaching men to be encouraging these simping behaviors. I don't think it's very good because it's disgusting. I think porn is disgusting.
In the whole, I think it's stupid. I think it's a negative impact on society. Pornography in general is a negative impact. There's this group that I follow. They came to my middle school once and I followed them since. It's called Fight the New Drug. And the new drug is pornography. Drugs are an addictive substance and they get you hooked on it and they get you wanting more and feeling that high. Pornography does the same thing.
What is your opinion on OnlyFans and its impact on society?
I'll go on both sides. There's the people doing it, and then there's also the people subscribing to it and giving them money. So the people doing it, I hate also when they say they're like God-centered or like, you know, they think they have like high self-worth or anything. Then you go online and you see these pictures, they're selling themselves. I mean, I would find that pretty embarrassing, but obviously you could see some people make a very good living out of it, which is crazy. Promotions and people being like, oh, if she's saying this is good, then I need to buy it, or like, you know, just being kind of like a simp. About the people that give their money to them, like, I just don't really understand that. They've got to be like insanely lonely or something, and it's just like an out for them.
I think it's a bunch of weirdos that pay people to do weird things. Like, I don't know what they're doing on there. It reminds me of these shows I watched where people have weird fetishes, like they dress up like animals.
I think OnlyFans perfectly illustrates the current status of modern dating culture, and that it's nasty, it's messy, and Standards aren't really a thing anymore when it comes to the dating world. A lot of men and women now are choosing to go their own way, which eventually leads to something like the red pill movement being created. In a nutshell, the movement basically illustrates the biases against men in society, and it gives them a voice. Influencers like Andrew Tate, Jordan Peterson, and the Fresh and Fit podcast have all been big voices in the movement. However, OnlyFans and the Red Pill movement have a common target, and that is weak men. While the idea behind the Red Pill movement is a good one and can certainly help men in discovering their true capabilities within, take Jordan Peterson for example, despite some controversial opinions, there's a lot of toxic and dangerous ideas that the mainstream side of this movement promotes. I think Andrew Tate is a great example to look at. While the man has had some good things to say, he has made just as many, if not more, controversial statements. Much of his ideology seems to be associated with the naturalistic fallacy, which is the idea, put simply, if something is natural, it must be good, therefore, it is how the world ought to be, and anything unnatural is bad. This is a dangerous way of thinking because it introduces ethical concerns. For example, I could say that in nature, the male animals usually compete and fight for a mate. Therefore, that should be the way it is in humans. If I see a man fighting with another man over who gets to have sex with a girl, I see this as pathetic. If a mother animal and some animal species is unable to care for their child, they would often abandon it. Does that mean humans should do that too? Absolutely not! Can you see why this way of thinking can be dangerous for someone? To the point, either way someone is influenced, be it OnlyFans, Red Pill, etc., they all profit off of somebody's weakness and can lead to disastrous consequences if not cautious. Believe me, I used to watch a lot of the Red Pill stuff, and it helped a lot for the most part, but I stopped watching it once I started getting to more toxic opinions. Like, Red Pill influencers will tell you that a woman is worthless if she slept with a bunch of dudes in her past, but they'll tell a man that in order to be high value, you have to sleep with as many women as you can and have 6 wives. So what does that make you? Pornography, on the other hand, is no better, as a regular watching habit of it can devastate a person's dopamine system just like any other addiction can. Perception on sexuality and relationships in porn are essentially objectified, and sex is hyped up to an extreme standard. I don't want to come off like this is a new thing or something like that, because we had VHS tapes and Playboy magazines before the internet. But the internet now has made it more accessible than ever. Obviously, people who are simps are more than likely going to be in the crowd who are addicted to watching porn and desperate for a partner. The best thing I can say is to have a solid support system, and stop watching OnlyFans if you are. Don't believe everything you hear, and make sure to create your own standards for personal boundaries. You'll be saving your dignity, respect, and sense of self. Dating apps are not fair to the male experience at all, unless you're gay or bisexual. Straight men have almost no chance of success on the apps because the amount of women on dating apps compared to men is different. In fact, only about 25% of users on Tinder are women, and many of the other dating apps have statistics with a higher population of men. Rather than focusing on a person's personality, like pornography, most users are looking at a person's looks and making quick decisions based on that factor alone. Physical appearance plays a role in dating, but it should not be the only factor alone, unless what you plan to do is participate in hookup culture. We already know that staying on these apps can end up being very addictive, especially since you're being blasted with hottie after hottie, but even as many men continue to swipe right, they see little to no success. So many dating apps would offer premium plans to increase chances of getting matches. Tinder has 3 tiers of plans that you can buy: Tinder Plus, Tinder Gold, and Platinum. Each tier increased by a big jump in price, but recently Tinder introduced a $500 a month subscription that's invite only and only for 1% of users. What? I just have to ask, who is this plan for and who is buying it? Dating apps sort of go hand in hand with pornography as far as making people focus on lust rather than developing any actual relationships and friendships with other people. Because when that is the focus all the time, many people forget about all the other things in life. like having long-term support and healthy connections. And corporations see that weakness and desperation as dollar signs, just like how all the social media companies copied TikTok, and now we have worse attention spans than goldfish. We're living in a loneliness epidemic. And I just have to ask, like, how did loneliness get so bad that it's causing a mental health crisis in America? Are people scared of making friends? Are their social skills just bad? Social media, dating apps, pornography, and other online occupations, I think, are some of the biggest contributors to the epidemic. We're heading towards a future where people are less connected and around each other physically, and more towards an online world, which overall makes people more depressed. And COVID certainly can be a big factor in creating that.
People can't have a conversation nowadays. They can't look you in the eye. And when you try to have a serious conversation with them, they want to do it over the phone. You have this aspect of society that can't have a conversation or anything like that. And now you throw in an important topic like sex into the mix. How do you think that's gonna go? Now we're gonna have men who don't know how to talk to women, who objectify women, which is, women should be mad about that, because objectifying women means that you essentially look at them like an object. Whenever you start taking these traditional values and throwing them out of the wind, you're not gonna like what's gonna happen.
Alright, my friends, here we are. We are here to talk about the many different types of simps. And as I said before, yes, there are many. Some of them are very similar in nature, and I decided to cut them out in sake of shortening the script as I was editing. But other than that, here we go. And number one, we got the hook and haul. So this is the guy who once they meet someone they are interested in, you pretty much never see them again, like dad went and got the milk. I don't know if I should have made that joke. Usually this happens when a simp gets in their first relationship or is really desperate, like pretty much all of them are. Encountering this simp might fall out of the radar because sometimes you don't really see it coming unless you got good detection skills like I do. Can't you tell I've encountered this simp a lot? This simp isn't the worst kind in the world, however having some kind of attachment to them as your friend can be dangerous and lead to abandonment issues being developed. You might feel angry, erratic, and feel betrayed once they decide to throw you under the bus. But remember that a simp who abandons their support system never really has that great of an ending. Take the lesson and use it as a tool for choosing good friends. Next up, we got the man slut. So, if you're in high school, you probably knew that guy who had a new girlfriend almost every single week. If you're out of high school, he probably is already having a kid 1 to 3 years after graduation, if not during senior year. Man sluts have little to no boundaries with the people they surround themselves with or who they decide to hook up with. And they're probably good looking, except they use sex and boast about their last partners and dates to cover up their insecurities. The reason I count them as a simp is because they will likely favor a night in bed with a partner rather than hanging with the boys. They are destined for their next mission at all costs, and everybody knows who they are. So naturally, to their standards, they will pull only the sluttiest people. Head doctors. Beware the man slut's narcissism in friendships, because if they have a low bar for their dating life, chances are they will not respect you. Up next, we got male attention whores. Similar to man sluts, male attention whores are trying their best to get with anybody they can, except they fail at doing so in cringeworthy fashion. They are loud, obnoxious, and you might even find them wearing flashy clothing in order to draw eyes in. You'll also see them doing risky stunts, and if said person of interest were to ask him to cut his balls off, he would blindly oblige. They'll follow people around like a lapdog, wanting, well, attention, and really want you to know that he's super cool. I think this simp makes a great candidate for histrionic personality disorder. Up next is Captain Save-A-Ho. Look up in the sky, it's a bird, it's a plane.
What's that fool name? Captain Save-A-Ho!
If you don't know the title of the song, well, there you go. The Captain Save-A-Ho simp is a very common type of simp, where the simp basically acts as a servant to a woman, and the woman does not care and continues to sleep with other men. A modern day example in a relationship would be If a guy allows their girlfriend to have an OnlyFans and she posts nude photos for other men to jack off to, I dibs. Captain Save-A-Ho is always on call for the woman he saves. He'll buy her clothes, food, and act as a taxi for his clients, and best of all, he doesn't expect anything in return for his services. I still can't get over that one part in E40's song. Next up is the mangina. This one is really funny but also painful to talk about. Essentially, the mangina is a woman inside a man's body. While they are not as common as a man slut or the thirsty guy, which I'll get to here in a minute, they are among the most toxic to be around. Having a mangina simp in your friend group is a recipe for chaos. But how? How did they become this? My theory is envy, or again, some kind of insecurity or self-esteem issue. It's highly likely that a man would start acting this way because they saw the success of one of their friends' dating lives and became jealous, so they decided to embrace being a male feminist, gossip, or whatever stuff happens in girl world. They might even start dressing more feminine in order to get on a woman's good side. They'll backstab their male friends, are typically very emotional, and lose any masculinity whatsoever. Don't get me wrong, men can be emotional, but there is a time and a place for it. For the mangina, it's completely off the rails. If you have someone in your friend group who acts like this, do yourself a favor and get rid of them as soon as possible. The Hollywood romantic. While some of the simps I've talked about may be influenced by movies and TV, the Hollywood romantic type simp takes it to a whole new level. This man lives every day like it's his own movie, with his own voiceover narration illustrating his life. There are some who imagine it to be a fairy tale, others a rom-com, and maybe even have just a classic romance. Depending on what genre the simp chooses to see their life through, ultimately dictates their behavior. Fairy tales might be the most untrustworthy, as it probably is the most unrealistic. Hollywood romantics world is shattered whenever something bad happens in their life, and therefore, they will play it out like a depressing sequence in a film. These simps tend to be a bit delusional, but there is hope. A solid support system should help in showing them the light and whatever troubles they are dealing with. Beware, if they do find a partner, they might become the hook and haul simp, the thirsty guy. Out of all the simps I have talked about on the list, this is probably the most common one that you'll see. Thirsty guys are a combination of many of the different types of simps as aforementioned. They are horny, competitive, and cringeworthy. Seeing how one of these guys behaves around women is nauseating. If you've ever been to a mall and you see a bunch of guys surrounding a woman trying to act impressive and the woman has no interest in any of them, that's basically what they are. They have like only one mode, and that mode is to focus on the mission. Usually these simps are on the younger side, but you'll find them in college too. Paraphilic simps. Identified in the DSM-5 as sexual masochism, which is a disorder where a person finds sexual excitement by being bound, beaten, and humiliated. Paraphilic simps are the worst of the worst. Thankfully, we don't see them that often. If you watch that show Euphoria and that scene where that one fat girl decides to start making money from so-called pay pigs, that's what these simps are. Now, a lot of the time, these simps will willingly hand over hundreds of dollars for women to treat them horribly. You can find many videos on YouTube where men are handing over money to be stepped on, beaten, and walked over like a dog in public. However, if you want to see even more extreme examples, you'll have to look elsewhere. And lastly, we have stalker simps. To wrap this section off with a bow, I figured we'd talk about the most dangerous kind of simp. To give you a picture, crazy ex-girlfriend or boyfriend. Stalker simps are born from breakups or out of desperate need. They will not stop texting, calling, or demanding to know where someone is, or they might not even do that at all. Instead, they can follow whoever it is they are interested in, which is an easy way to get a restraining order against you. I've seen something like this happen before to someone, and it wasn't a good situation. It was really creepy, and I never thought I'd be in the middle of a situation where I'd have to report someone stalking. Christian has had a friend of his own who behaved like this.
I got close with one of my friend's friend, so from the friend group, one of these new people. And me and her got real close, and we were having, we had a good friendship. One of the other friends in the friend group didn't like that at all. And anytime I would have a conversation with her or hang out with her, he would always text me or come up to me and be like, "Hey, I saw you were talking to her about whatever. What were you guys talking about though? Were you talking about me? Did she say anything about me?" And it was kind of desperation from him, because me and her were just friends. There was really nothing to it. All he would talk about was her, like, all the time. Me and him would hang out, and we'd be going to get some food or something, and he'll get in my car, and I'm like, hey man, what's up? He's like, did you see what she posted on her story? And like, it's immediate conversation about her, does not end until he gets home. It's gotten to a point where he would stalk her. It's weird. We reported it to her parents and his parents and all that, but he would like drive by her house and like send pictures of her house to her and be like, oh, I'm outside, while we were all in the car except for her.
If you're friends with someone like this, you could try to intervene and mitigate the situation, or you could cut them off. Depending on what you do, the severity of the situation matters, so it's important to step in early as you can before anything gets worse.
I think it's going to be best to end this video off by offering some advice and addressing anything to those who are related to anything that I said. A majority of people in life have had some kind of simp phase, and that is okay. You may have had friends who stuck by you, or you may have lost friends from that phase, and that's okay too. What matters is what you decide to do with your life right now. One of the things I have done in the last couple of years is invest my time in relationships with people that are valuable and worthwhile. Friends who help me grow and make me laugh all the same. Some people are a holiday, some people are home, and others are just hell. Any kind of romantic relationship you have should act as an extension of your life, not be your entire world. For example, I don't take much of a liking when people call their romantic partners their other half, because it implies as if that person was someone they've been missing for their entire life. But in reality, you should already be whole. You should be complete as you are. A romantic partner or friend enhances and builds your character. Building up that person to feel whole for someone who doesn't can be difficult at first, but in order to discover it, having some healthy time alone and a good support system will help you in building stronger self-esteem. Studying the philosophy of stoicism can help. Working out and finding an old hobby you find passion in are all great things to get into. Humans need relationships in life. We're social creatures, but in order to have healthy relationships with others, you first need to have a good relationship with yourself. I'm going to hand it off to some of my friends now in order for them to get a chance to talk about some of their own advice.
I'm going to look at the camera for this one.
Okay.
Am I good?
Yes.
So advice I would give a simp. I have to think about this one for a second.
Okay.
Just stop caring. Life is gonna get so much easier when you don't care about what they're doing all the time. If you truly, truly, truly love this person, let them be them. Their personality is not based off of your love for them. And that's all. That's all I gotta say.
Maybe find a group where you can find real friends, you know, make an effort to not to give somebody something for something, you know, to get something, but just try to find a true connection. Maybe join some groups or get some counseling.
I'm approaching this from two sides. One, I used to be a simp, and two, I've known simps. There are no helping simps. They have to help themselves. End of story.
There's no advice you can give them?
No, because they don't listen to it.
Look what you could be. I feel like lots of simps are held back, and they're not their true selves sometime. And just think, look what you could be. You could be this.
Our world has become convenient in the way we do things. No longer do we need to leave our home for really anything. If you have a credit card and a phone, you pretty much can have everything delivered to you. But with that comes the cost of human interaction and social skills.
Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. Because things are easy now, there's no wars going on, and you see the media promoting that men should be feminine and feel and all that. No. Men need to be strong. Men need to do what they've always done. Protect the ones they love. Being a man is sacrifice for the people you love and care about.
It's getting crazier out there, and obsession indulges in our everyday lives. Obsessive love disorder and simping is just one of the many things that a person can suffer from. How would you describe obsession?
Obsession is your every waking thought being about this person. Obsession is going out of your way to please a person who doesn't give a fuck about you. Obsession is where it becomes unhealthy and you can't focus on your own life and your world becomes this other person. That is obsession. Love is you living your own life and that person just being an extension of it, a part of it, one little piece in your life.
I did have a guy I was working with one time try to, like, tell me that we didn't have to do anything or we didn't have to be boyfriend or girlfriend, but he wanted to, like, buy me things. And I thought that was weird as hell. No.
Is he willing to buy you?
And I don't know why, if, like, because he knew I didn't have any romantic interest or anything like that, but he was still willing to do it. I don't know if it was, I don't know what his motives were. Maybe he thought you could break it down and eventually if he was buying me things that he would get me to like him, or if he just wanted to look like he had a girlfriend or what. But no, I shut that down. No thank you. That's weird.
Wait a minute. No way. Well, that's why I have that recording.
Validate me.
Is that another one?
No, I don't consent. It's a real shame.
Well, I guess we can't do the interview then.
I guess I gotta go home.
So, welcome. Before we begin, I want to make sure you're feeling comfortable. When we're doing the interview.
I'm uncomfortable.
If at any time during the interview you feel uncomfortable, you need a break, we're just going to talk about something else.
I'm going to abuse the hell out of that.
And my last question is, when you were in school... Thanks for watching. I hope that this video was able to give you some new perspective on some things, and just a reminder that all of this is me and my friends' opinions, but I hope that it was able to give you some insight. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe and follow my Instagram at thebroscb. And to all my friends who participated in this, thank you for taking a part in it, of course. And yeah, go do a hobby that you love to do, go chat up with some real ones, and get out in the world to explore. Until next time, I'll see you again.